Welcome back to the harbor. I'm your host, the Kino Cowboy. I'm here with my co-host Scott Keith, like usual. Today, I'd like to apologize for our last stream, opening it with that hard cut about the election. That was foolish of me now that I know the way things have gone, but we'll get that out of the way. Forget that ever happened. Anyway,
Yeah,
t
you needed to blow off some steam.
today we're talking
And if
about
if you if you have anything to argue about the election, plece leave it in the comments because the engagement helps us anyway.
today we're talking about William Friedkin's Sorcerer, 1977. I think this is the first film of his we've talked about here and here. I've thought about doing The Exorcist multiple times, but
I'm glad we're doing this instead.
yeah,
And
exactly.
we can compare this to The Exorcist because that's the other film of his I've seen. Also, I kind of watched it for this podcast. I was like, because that's what I've never seen The Exorcist. I've been putting that off for years. I'm like, this is pathetic. Like, why have I not seen The Exorcist? So I
Uh,
watched it yesterday too.
oh,
But we're
okay.
talking about Sorcerer. Which he considers his masterpiece. I would consider The Exorcist to be a better, or at least cleaner film.
Yeah.
But the fact that this is one of those movies where it's like the fact that this movie exists and was made, it's like a Fitzcarraldo Revenant, like one of those where I'm just imagining how grueling the shoot would be.
Yeah, I kept thinking of Aguirre, Wrath of God the whole
Yeah,
time. It's like, oh my God.
it seems like some Herzog shit. You know how he
Well,
loves bringing different vehicles over mountains and stuff.
this is one I put off for a long time, and it was like one of those that I've seen the iconic image of the truck on the bridge so many times throughout my life, and it's like, okay, I got to get to this. And it's one of those where you're kind of waiting the whole time to see how it gets to this moment that you've seen so much. And it was like, this is another one of those I think that kind of had a bit of a stirring up in the film community in the last couple of years. Like, oh yeah, I
Yeah, I
remember
feel like
this.
I've heard about it way more in the past couple years.
And but it's been on my list for a long time, so I'm glad we finally got around to it.
And you know how we like manifest stuff into the universe where we
Yeah.
cover films? There is a Janus Films 4K restoration of this movie coming out November 27th
Oh yeah.
in like 2 weeks. In exactly 2 weeks as we're recording this.
Yeah, and that's not like a
And that was announced in the past 24 hours.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
not
And
why we're doing this.
I wrote this on the list a while ago anyway, so for this year of harbor discussions. So, it happens. It happens a lot actually. It's kind of weird.
It's crazy. And when I say a restoration, I'm talking about the original 1953 Wages of Fear, which this movie is based on. Wages of Fear makes way more sense as a title. You watch this film, and I'm like, why the heck is it called Sorcerer?
Well, he
And
considers it not to be a remake of Wages of Fear, but
okay, but um,
yeah, well, the
it's William Friedkin was whenever I need cheering up, I just watch videos of him crapping on Al Pacino and being a curmudgeon, and it brings my heart joy. So I get it, but yeah, this movie is definitely I think seen because it bombed initially. Largely, that bombing is attributed to Star Wars releasing at the same time, and everybody was seeing Star Wars because this is a bleak movie. This movie is pretty nihilistic. I mean,
it's
this
pretty
movie's hard to
70s,
watch at times. Oh, it's
but
70s grit, but instead of New
yeah.
York, we're in an unspecified South American country.
Yeah, it was one of those movies. The whole time I was watching, I was like, dude, just send me to jail. I'd rather just go to jail than deal with all this shit, dude. Terrible.
Well, it's one of these movies, older movies that has a really slow, intentionally first act, which you understand why they do that. They take so much time to set up the stakes where for every character, there's four sort of vignettes. You have, I keep wanting to call him Brody. You have Roy Scheider, who
Yeah.
plays Brody in Jaws, most famously. Um, who he's mobster, Irish mobster who gets in. He basically there's a hit on him for the Italian mob, and then Bruno Cremer, who's some French guy. He's been mostly in French movies. He's like a banker or finance guy, and he's in like huge debt, and he just leaves the country after his partner shoots himself. Then we have Palestine Liberation, I guess. Yay. Uh,
Yeah.
then we have a hitman. We We have all these.
When you see a Palestinian conflict going on in a movie from 45 years, you kind of get reminded just how long this has been stagnating. Because,
Dude,
yeah,
it's hopeless. Anyway, it's not gonna get better.
it was like, well, at
Also,
first,
I'll say this right now. If it like all these young people who are like, I'm not voting for Harris because she doesn't support Palestine, you're stupid. You're stupid, and any American president is gonna do what American presidents do, and like you're stupid.
thank you
That's it.
for virtue signaling. All of you non-voters now pay the price.
Yep.
Anyway, um, at first I was like, what the hell is going on? Before I realized it was like setting up the four characters that would be on the truck. I was like, is there some sort of international like
Yeah, no, it took me a minute to really get on board with like what they're doing because I didn't really look up much about this movie. I knew it was about a truck with explosives. That's about it. Um, and honestly, this movie, better than any other movie in recent memory, feels global in scale. And because I think, as opposed to James Bond or Indiana Jones or Mission Impossible, where it's one character globetrotting, like, and now he's in Rome and now he's in Venice, da, 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 da. Like, instead of it doing that, you have multiple characters all across the globe with their own individual lives, all being introduced at the same time, then converging
yeah,
instead of globetrotting. And for some reason, that makes it feel so much more grand than just one person going
yeah,
on an
for
adventure. And
sure.
not four times more grand, like 16 times, like school.
But it's also, yeah, I just appreciated like the idea of how do we get to this? Because I know the scene that's the famous scene that's coming, and you know, not everyone knows that, but like I did. So I'm watching this French banker get into deep shit, and I'm like, well, how is this gonna end up at this scene that I've been waiting for, which
Right.
I
And
found
you're talking
fascinating.
about is the scene from the poster when they're on the bridge.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, there's a couple bridges in this movie.
I know, but it was like there's a shot that has been passed around, just like the the Exorcist shot of him showing up to the house underneath the lamppost, you know,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
it's that level of iconic that I was waiting for, and it was awesome. But it was like I really appreciate not just having these vignettes to set up these characters, but just from scene to scene, directors that take the time to just show little bits of each set of what's going on, like when he's at the luncheon with his wife. It just takes the time to show the food that's being served, kind of the people that are eating there. When he goes in, you know, just different like, oh, here's the people inside of this bar. This this person's cleaning, these people are watching from the window, they don't have any money. Just little details here and there that adds so much to scenes, and this guy obviously gets it. But there's so many scenes that are just beautiful, and even though they're set in the most desolate kind of location, that he knows how to capture.
No,
Just
there's a beauty to it. And it just popped in my old head, kind of like No Country for Old Men, when that oil well is
yeah.
on fire and it's billowing
Hmm.
day or night, you know. I mean, yeah, there's a beauty to it. Also, I'm pretty sure they had to actually light some shit on fire to do that, which is I cannot imagine making this movie.
Yeah.
I wouldn't. I'll be honest. This story to me, if I read this script, I'm like, this is great. Somebody else can make it. Like, I don't know if I
Yeah.
would want to.
It sounds, yeah. And I was thinking of that when Roy Scheider's in the when he's freaking out, kind of having a meltdown, and he's like swinging the machete at the trees and shit, just in anger, and like falls into that water. I'm like, well, this is really happening. He probably is probably really easily bringing his frustration of the location shooting into the scene because like it sounds
Yeah, they're
bad.
everybody's constantly moist.
Yeah.
Everybody's just dripping sweat at every scene and swatting away flies because they're filming on location. I'm gonna look up exactly where, but no, it's you don't have to act. Which is the argument is like, hey, you don't have to. You know, we can cast people, and if they're willing to do it, like they're gonna give a good performance. Because yeah, it's
They're willing to do some hard bullshit acting wise for money, just like their characters are willing to do this horrible
yeah.
kind of.
I think the majority of this. was shot of the jungles and stuff that was shot in the Dominican Republic.
Yeah.
Where and then there's the bridge scene was Veracruz, Mexico, as was the first scene in the movie with Veracruz, Mexico, which is it's an insane way to open the movie because it's just guy gets shot, guy walks away, and then we cut to Israel. Like it's like what's happening?
Well, if it would make sense if it was like a Bond movie or something, like, okay, this guy's up to no good. Okay, but this is
Yeah,
not a spy thriller.
I'm like, where's the truck?
But it was that cut, like you right to Jerusalem. I'm like, wait, what the fuck is
What
going
is
on, dude?
happening? No, watching this movie, I can see why audiences were rebuffed at it, especially like we'll get it. It's a bleak movie. It's exhausting to watch, and in ways because you're so immersed with the characters. It's kind of like Texas Chainsaw, where it just feels hot and sticky the entire time. I
Yeah.
love it when movies, any sort of art, but like when movies give that tactile sense,
Oh
you
yeah.
can almost taste the sweat or smell it, and it feel so good. It's hard to capture.
An interesting part for me was the choice of using synths in a lot of the score for such a rugged kind of film. But it works so well, interestingly. And I
It
was like,
is
who the fuck is this? It's Tangerine Dream.
Tangerine Dream, dude,
And I was
legend,
like, oh
thief.
shit, people at home, that's a famous electronic group. But I was like,
One of the pioneers.
I know we've done a film that they've scored on this show. What was it? It was Legend from Ridley Scott. And I was like, okay, this is all clicking
Yeah.
together now.
And was that both versions or just the American version with Tangerine Dream
What do you mean?
and Legend?
What,
There was like the director's cut that we did.
oh, I don't know. I don't know.
Okay, I don't know. It doesn't really matter. They also worked on Grand Theft Auto 5. I learned that. I didn't know that. So we'll see.
I forgot
Uh,
about all that. Yeah.
no, no, no. Um, I don't know. I think this movie is like it's very tactile and it's very physical, but at the same time, it's very existential because they're fighting for their lives, and it's about the brutality we do to ourselves and to others. Because like none of these people you would argue are good people, you know. And that's not an anti-Palestine statement, by the way. I'm just saying he's blowing people up, and it's probably not. I mean, depending on
Yeah.
what you believe, some people think that's the best way to go about things. I don't know. But yeah, none of the even our hero is like he's a mobster who steals from churches. Churches run by the mob, where churches where like for no real reason other than just to be bleak and nihilistic, they show the bride getting married has a shiner with the size of her palm
That's
over
part
her
of those
eye.
little details I was talking about. And it's like,
It's
you don't
something.
have
No,
to take the time to do that, but it just adds to it. I
yeah,
would.
it has nothing to do with the story, like the plot, but it's helps build the world. It's
Yeah.
insane she didn't like try to put makeup over that. She's
Yeah.
like, it's like, okay, you're just everybody is
It
here.
almost felt like a completely different film during that vignette. And I was like, whoa, now
It
we're in a
did. Well,
mob
William
movie.
Friedkin is so versatile because
Yeah.
you look at this and you look at The Exorcist and you look at The French Connection. Like these are all completely different genres. So
Yeah.
he's able to make these kind of short films within his films stand out, and because he's fluent in all of those genres because he's such a powerhouse of a director.
And also, and each one has sudden death. The guy is assassinated suddenly. Suddenly, there's an explosion out of nowhere. These people are dead. They had no idea it was coming. These guys didn't know they were about to crash and die immediately in the car. And the he, and then the French guy turns around and his partner's killed himself. Just out of nowhere, death just shows up. And it's just in a flash. And that's another theme in this movie because later on, that's how two of them go in the truck and just who could have seen it coming? And I saw Friedkin talking about how, no one knows when they're obviously going to be born or when they're dead. And it's just, and that's haunted him. And I feel a personal connection to that person. So I really got into that kind of mindset, especially as the movie went on. I was really kind of feeling what he had to say, even if it was a little nihilistic.
No, it is. The entire movie is about the inevitability of death and how fragile everything is, you
Yeah.
know, and not just your own life, but relationships, finances, just everything. It's about chaos, like almost No Country for Old Men level of like can't stop death, can't stop what's coming.
Yeah.
He had freaking had to have had somebody in his life die when he was young. You know, maybe not. Maybe he's just obsessed with death because I haven't had that, and I think about death all the time. But I mean, like, it would not surprise me if he had like a friend or a uncle or somebody, you know,
Yeah.
die early in his life because the guy's messed up. The guy's like, you gotta be a fucked up person to make this movie.
Yeah, the what's Roy Scheider's character's name?
His name is 1 second. Sorry, I'm on the
I
wrong
should
page.
have
Brody.
I'm
No, it's
like
Scanlon. Scanlon?
no, it's
Yeah, Scan.
something. It's like Victor or some shit. I don't remember.
Uh,
But
Doesn't matter.
anyway, his character when he is escaping from the car and is able to get away while all of his guys are dead,
Mm-hmm.
he has a friend who owes him a favor. And he's like, I'm gonna get you out of the country. That's really all you can do. And he's like, well, where am I going? He's like, don't worry about it. You don't know. It's like, you don't get to choose, man. Like, I'd be so mad if I was sent there and like I could have been sent to like Switzerland or like Austria or something. I don't know. It's
Yeah,
like,
the fact that they all have to wind up here because they're all so desperate. Like, why does
yeah,
the banker have to? I mean, I guess he doesn't have money, but like, why does he have to wind up here? He does have a wife that
yeah, I
like
would have gone to jail.
you can't just
Surely he
take.
could have found what level of money did he owe that he couldn't find the collateral for?
It was
That's
millions. It was
yeah,
15 million francs, and I don't.
okay,
They don't even use that anymore. They use euro, and I'm not going to do the calculation, but like
yeah.
the word is million, 15 million. So you know,
Oh,
well, it's
yeah.
it's not something. I mean, that's when you're because he's dealing with like a national bank with like whatever their equivalent of the Fed is.
I would have risked jail. Fuck it. I'm not going out to South America and work.
Dude, they send you to a white collar jail. He's eating that Cornish hen or whatever they're eating in that one scene. Like he's got it good, man. You know, he gets out on a plea bargain or something, parole.
Insane that like he just happens to end up in this area. That's fun. I like that. But I also like that man, it's just brutal because Roy Scheider is like when he's in that country, he's going by Juan. I'm like, who are you fooling, man?
Dude, they're all going. Yeah, he's going by like Juan Dominguez, and
Yeah.
the guards get him at one point. They immediately are like, "You're full of shit." Like, what are you talking
They just
about?
shake him down. I get it, but like, damn, man. Like, what? Who are you fooling? He can't even speak English. I mean, Spanish. Right?
No, no,
Didn't
Spanish.
even try to like learn a little bit to try and
I
fool. I
mean,
guess I don't know.
it's one of those things where like your whole life you're just working on oral Derek, which is grueling work. I'm sure you have to learn a little to communicate, but most of the time you're probably too tired to talk. You know, you have a French guy who's he's always talking with the former implied to be a former Nazi bartender, and he's talking to him straight up in German. I'm like, wow, you're not even speaking Spanish with him. You know German. You're just talking to him. Which
Yeah,
that's another detail that makes you wonder about that character. Like,
Europeans are cultured.
yeah, I don't know. Spanish is closer to French than German is.
Yeah, but
Nobody else is. Are the Mexicans or whatever, Dominican, wherever this is supposed to be? Are they all talking to him in German? No.
hell no. That's like frightening. An idea for me to like be stuck in a place like that without being able to speak the language and like possibly not have a way out. I get the desperation of doing whatever you do to get.
And that's why it's so terrible. They have to show what their lives were before to get to this point.
Yeah, that's true.
I do think it's crazy that Victor, who's the Frenchman, like he's the only one of these people I would consider white collar at all. You
Yeah.
know, the other like you have criminal, you have banker, you have freedom fighter slash terrorist, depending on your politics, and it's hitman. And so it's actually really telling of his character that he's able to function and do all this shit, and like seems to have a fairly good head about his shoulders. So I wonder if he really worked his way up or if he's done some shady stuff. That's why he's in this situation. If he's had dealings with criminals in the past or like whatever mobs or mafiosos are in Paris. I don't know. Um, who knows, And I looked at the actors, and they seem a little too young to have fought in World War II if they were their characters. But also, you could like just say their characters did. It doesn't matter.
It was enough for his partner Pascal to commit suicide. Like
That
that's
I mean,
pretty
that happened. That
intense.
happened in the 2008 financial crash. There were people who killed themselves over it
Jesus.
just because they're like, oh, my portfolio is worth nothing now. Cool. And I'm a soulless, empty husk, and without my money, I'm nothing because I'm a finance bro.
Yeah. Sheesh.
I'm like, all right. I mean, I'm broke. I'm not killing myself.
So far, no, but I'm just playing. Um, man, yeah, but that luncheon he's at right before Pascal kills himself. I'm like, I love characters that are in deep shit but are still maintaining the lifestyle right before the shit breaks loose. And he doesn't even like find a car or something, drive away. He just takes off running. And when it's like, okay, you
Yeah,
could
well,
have
they have
like
public transportation. It's
you
Europe.
could figure
No,
some shit out. I don't know. He had 24 hours. Oh well.
it is crazy. Well, at that point, he's like, oh, I'm going to be implicated in this. Even though I'm sure because the police can like look at blood splatters and stuff, and they can tell if something's a suicide or
No, if
not.
you did, he could have just ran back in and been like, "This horrible thing just happened. Help!" You know.
Yeah, he panicked,
I
you
know.
know, and he thought he could get away with it, and why does he end up here of all places? That's kind of left for you to imagine. It is a thing. It's almost like they're prisoners of war. Like they're caught. It's kind of like that thing where I know in Dubai, in some places, for instance, in the UAE, they'll get like Indian, Pakistani, subcontinental people over allegedly on work visas, and then they'll just take their passport and be like, "Okay, you work for us now." Like, and it's modern day slavery, is what it
Yeah,
is. So it could be that, and this movie doesn't have to answer all these questions.
I know. I know.
But it's really interesting because
It did remind me of like almost like they're in the way they're trapped without the enough pesos to get out is like it really is like a internment camp of in a way. Not really, but it just felt like that. Like when we did Empire of the Sun, kind of like they're all in
yeah,
this little area they're working for money, but it's scraps and like all these guys to see how many of the men were willing to sign up, even though they're like, this is extremely dangerous and here's the consequences. And all of them looked annoyed that they weren't chosen for the mission. It's like,
yeah.
damn.
I mean, when you're hungry, you'll rationalize anything. You'll just be
Yeah.
like, "It won't happen to me. I won't die," which I think
Yeah.
is part of the point he's making. He's
Yeah.
like, "Oh, you think you can escape death? You think you can get through this? Nobody can." And the ending, which I have mixed feelings about, we'll get on to it.
Yeah.
It really hammers that home. But it's one of those things. I mean, I watched this movie. This is one of those movies that makes me think, dude, I'm glad I was born in America and not a lot of other countries. I mean, if I was born in France, I would be okay. But yeah, if I was born a peasant in some unnamed, and this is not a flattering depiction of Latin America by any stretch of the
No.
imagination. Um, but I'm sure you know parts of it, especially at this time when we were dealing with banana republics and stuff. Like there are people who live their lives like working for pennies on oil rigs while an offshore foreign
Sure.
corporation sucks up all the profits, and
Yeah.
they're
I
and
mean,
they're paying you pennies because that's screw you. What are you gonna do? I mean,
yeah.
and even going back to the theme of like one of the first things we see when we get into Latin America is just people by hand in some river or swamp hoisting an oil pipe trying to fit it, and then it crushes one guy, and immediately. And it's like that's our introduction to this setting is when we get here.
Brutal. But also, it's the
It happens.
70s. A lot of countries still developing, a lot
Yeah, they
of
do. Yeah, they don't got OSHA.
plenty of areas in the world slip through the cracks still. Like, I mean, even today we still have places like that, but not as common. But it's
Yeah,
just,
you have people. Foxconn had to install those nets outside their factories because people were jumping out the windows to commit suicide because
yeah,
they're
Jesus.
making iPhones 16 hours a day. That's why I use Android, because I'm sure there was no slave labor in my electronics.
Yeah, who's
There,
to say, really?
there's no ethical consumption under capitalism.
Wow, I've never heard that one before.
Yeah, dude.
Um, there's, I might sound crazy. I don't sound crazy to myself, but I'm gonna say when they're setting up the iconic trucks and they're building them from scraps, there's no doubt in my mind that George Miller was heavily influenced by this.
Yeah, I believe that.
It
No, I didn't think
remind,
about that, but I didn't even have to. I did not think about that when I watched this yesterday. But you saying that right now, I didn't even have to think about it. I was like, yeah, you're right. Like,
they,
there's he
they
has to have
built the
seen this
war
movie.
rig in the
Yeah,
movies.
it's
There's no
almost like an
doubt in my
Edgar
mind.
Wright close up, like showing all this stuff. And that's
Yeah,
the
it's even like
and
ahead
here's
of
the
its
thing.
time.
I used to kind of work in the trucking industry, not as a driver. And like I've seen videos that were, I guess my algorithm suggests me, of truckers in third world countries where there's like holes in the floor of the truck and they're driving barefoot over like muddy, swampy terrain. Like
Fucking
they're
Flintstones ass.
no, it really no, they're yabba dabba doing it all the way to Timbuktu. No, it's really insane. I mean, you got to respect the guys. That's honestly one of my favorite. I wouldn't call it brain rot, but like stupid, like lowbrow. Not really that lowbrow, but like mindless content to watch is just like people in third world countries doing like crazy shit, like stacking 15 bricks on their head, or like trying to get a truck to cross something by just putting down wooden planks, which applies to this movie. um no, it's amazing what people go through. And like I don't know, I complain about having to deliver food
Yeah,
because we're in such a rich country that people
I
can just
know.
have fresh gorgeous food delivered to them.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal.
No,
But
it's
what can we do?
yeah,
Except
I mean,
sit
what do you
on our
expect me to do,
asses
give to
in
charity? No.
nice air-conditioned housing and talk about movies about poor people,
Yeah, dude,
even though
it's
I'm
their
poor.
fault for not being American.
I'm poor, but that's American poor.
Yeah, dude, American poor ain't. I mean, I say this all the time. We are spoiled as a country,
Yeah.
and the West in general, I would say, and us especially. Like, anyway, I'm not gonna get off on
But that
politics.
montage paired with Tangerine Dream's score and kind of the angles and shots he does, it really felt ahead of its time. A lot of stylistically, it feels fresh even today, 45 years later. A lot of the way he did the film, I was like, I can't believe a movie 45 years old feels so fresh to
Now
me.
it ages really well, and
Not
it's
just the way it's shot, but also just the structure of the script and everything about it. It's just like, yeah,
thematically, you know. I
yeah,
think this level of bleakness, a lot of people in '77 could not handle, and
yeah.
obviously the box office, they went for escapism at Star Wars. Um, No, and I mean all of that, like that reminds me of like Cuba because of the embargoes. They still have cars from the 50s that, I mean, they're like putting diesel engines in like a regular, sort of truck, like stuff like they're just doing like crazy stuff because those Cuban mechanics are able to work around the embargoes and just use whatever parts they can get, to make whatever. And it's just that level of desperation, which again, it's just one of those details showing like what these guys have to do, and how insane it is.
That we've done a lot of 70s films, and a lot of the films from the 70s that we've done have that layer of that specific grit. And it reminded me of Midnight Express, except I think this is a little less racist than Midnight Express.
Yeah, and it's still kind of racist.
I know, but like it had that
Midnight Express
bleak.
is the most racist movie I've ever seen, not made by D.W. Griffith. Let's just put it that way. The
It's
most
a fu-
racist movie I've seen, not involving the literal Ku Klux Klan.
but it
I mean,
just
dude,
had
I don't know. With how bleak this movie is, like if they showed up at one point, I'd be like, yeah, okay, I get it. Like this movie is, it's coming.
but it was like knowing that famous shot on the bridge. I'm like, okay, so it's gonna involve trucks. Okay, so I'm kind of waiting for this setup. So when it does get to that of them building it like the goddamn war rig, I'm like, yeah, let's get it. I like that there's almost like this, I don't know, like biblical element to that.
They're
Like
prepping for battle.
I know, but like I'm saying, like cinematically, you got your holy ground of like things in cinema, and like the Godfather scene in the wedding when he's, that's iconic. I just think about like certain iconography that has been celebrated and is powerful. And this film just kind of knows like we're building this up. They spent an hour, the whole first half, just building up to this trek. And this could have been an 80-minute movie, but it wouldn't have been as good
No, not at
without.
all. And it would have been what it would have been is the in earlier this year, I think in March 2024, because the book it's based on in their first original movie is French, and now there's a Netflix original French remake, which 20% on Tomato Meter, 14 audience score, and 4.6 on IMDb, and like it could have been that is what I'm
Yeah.
saying. And sure, that's modern, and it's so. I was talking about this with a buddy last night. We were talking about Friedkin in this movie. Um, it's so cliche for me to say, but the fact that this movie was made in the analog age, and you have to think, how did they do that? And you know that this is not on green screens or sound stages, that they're
Yeah.
on location, makes it so much better. Like, I don't, they wouldn't let you make this movie today.
Well, I know. Well, yeah, it was like when you're watching the bridge scenes, like, how the fuck did they shoot this? This looks insane. What are they doing? This is fucked up.
I still don't get it. Dude, if you're like a boom operator and you're on this or the Revenant or any of these famously hard shoots, do you get paid more or are you just getting paid as a boom operator?
You're just getting paid, whatever.
Okay, if I'm just, dude, I mean, here's the thing. I know it's good on your resume to be like, I was in a William Friedkin movie, but still, you were like a boom operator. And this is not throwing any shade to boom operators. You have an essential job. For me, you're an essential worker. Okay, if you're making movies, because that's I would kill myself without it. But it's one of those things where like, man, I could be on a studio lot and be home by 7 p.m. for dinner, but out here in the middle of the goddamn jungle.
And but it's like movies like that where that meta level adds so much to the experience when
It
you're
really
watching it.
does. It's one of those. I have to like explain it. I got a new roommate who this is a friend of mine. I know him, but he's younger. He's Gen Z. He's 20. And so he's like I was showing him every frame of painting. I was just because I was talking about. I'm like, okay, if you want to learn about movies, like here's a good place to start. And like I was kind of like explaining like why thinking about these behind the scene things it can ruin your brain and make you into cynics, but also like it can make things so much better. And like I sometimes just want to like grab people and shake them you know
Also, you can train your brain. For me, on the first watch of a lot of movies, if it's not for this show that we do, especially in the theater, I usually can train myself to just let it wash over me.
yeah, me
Notice
too.
some level of what they're doing technically, but kind of I prep myself to like save that for like a rewatch for certain films.
No, I agree. And there's certain elements like I notice sound and scoring a lot more on the second watch.
Yeah,
Like you notice it more on the first watch, but you're also just more musically literate than I am.
yeah,
And I come from things from more of a, I guess, writerly first and then like a cinematographically second.
yeah.
And then I have friends they'll come at it like music for like our friend Dan from high school, who's like a composer now. He's like, he'll just immediately talk about the music. I don't know, it's interesting. This has
Yeah,
nothing to do with that movie. I just think it's interesting how people's brains work.
totally.
But this is also a movie that like, yeah, I half the time, when I'll take notes when I watch a movie for this show, but for this I wanted to just be immersed, and I was, and I felt real guilty. I was thinking to myself, I was like wrapped up in a blanket and a hoodie, like on a cold morning, getting all warm and toasty, and I'm watching this movie of people just dying. I'm like, it's good to be a white man in America.
So the whole thing is they can't get this oil rig is on fire. They can't do anything, and they need to blow it up to basically get rid of the problem. But the old, wherever they've been keeping their dynamite has gone rotted
And
away
is
basically.
it some old guerrilla fighters like
Yeah,
shack?
it seems like it basically.
Dude, it looks like an outhouse. Like
Yeah,
I
they've been
expected an ogre to be in there with a storybook, like gonna blow it up, like that's ever gonna happen. Somebody,
So the
but
nitroglycerin has corrupted, and now for some reason, instead of carrying it in a small car or in a couple of small cars, they're going to carry it in the biggest trucks known to man.
I mean, those trucks over rough terrain, like you couldn't do
I
that.
know, I know.
Also, they were saying there's a scene where they like explain why they can't do it with a helicopter, and they're like too much turbulence. And then you see what the trucks are doing in this movie, and I'm like, I've never been on a helicopter. There's no way they have more turbulence than what's going on right here.
Maybe, I don't know. What
I
if
don't
there's a
know. I could
sudden
be
gust
wrong.
of wind or something that's going to shake it?
I've seen some sketchy helicopter. I mean, in person, I've seen some helicopter rides where I'm like, okay, that guy's at like a 30-degree angle, like tilted like this. I would not want to be on that.
Ever since
Um,
Kobe Bryant died, I'm like, yeah, I'm not going on any
no,
helicopter.
for real. Like, not even joking. Like Kobe died. I'm like, dude, if God will take Kobe, he'll take me for sure.
Yeah.
I'm not that important. I ain't winning any championships.
That's like this whole buildup makes the whole trek that much more important, that much heavier. And it's like such a major shift in the film. And you see it when the trucks are finally done and built, and you get that silhouette shot and the trucks like turning on in the rain and stuff. It's like, yeah, you know how to build up your own movie. It's just so awesome.
No, and it's so simple. I feel like a producer today would be like, "Where's that light source coming from? Who gives a shit? It looks cool."
If parallel parking is a nervous activity for you in real life, this movie might not be for you.
Dude, no, I drive for a living, but I bumped into somebody's rocks in their driveway, rock wall in their driveway in front of them the other day. They were cool about it, but it's like
Oops.
I couldn't do this. And I've driven big trucks like this. Like, yeah, they're not easy, and diesel is like diesel trucks. They rumble the entire time,
Yeah.
and you're doing that for hundreds of miles. It wears
Yeah.
on your body. It's like your whole body's a shake weight, and you're just dripping sweat, ready to blow.
Yeah, for real. And the movie's also about like all the things in life you could never possibly account for. And like the native guy who finds the truck funny and he's like jumping around chasing it. It's like, how could you have accounted for this? Like,
And that's so funny. And that really, again, that has nothing. That's just showing it's to show that we're in a third world country. It's like, here's this peasant farmer guy,
who
who's
has no idea what
really
any of this
cut,
is.
has a perfect body. I mean, his diet must be good.
Yeah.
He's on that paleo diet,
He's on that
probably.
hunter and gatherer diet.
Yeah. He's getting all that wild game. Um, but no, he's doing that. I mean, and we go a long way in the movie, but like it's nihilistic even to the point where I'm jumping way ahead here toward like the
Yeah.
last 20 minutes, but when one of the trucks, spoilers, obviously, blows up out of just from a pop tire, which is the most inane. I had a pop tire like 2 weeks ago. It's just the most inane,
Yep.
like random thing. You die. They go back to witness it and just to like, I guess, check on the bodies. And then some guerrilla fighters or whatever show up because they saw the explosion too. And it's like a whole thing. It's like you're being punished for being a good person.
Yeah.
And again, this is a couple times. It's reminded me of like No Country for Old Men when Lewin goes back to give him the water, and that's what ruins them. You know, like that ruins everything.
Yeah. There is a level of like cosmic punishment in this film.
Oh
That
yeah, no, it's all about fate. Friedkin said that. He said that specifically.
yeah.
I mean, you were barreling toward your fate in a fragile husk of a body, barely held together with rivets, ready to go and explode and die at any time. Like it's right there.
Yeah. Totally. It's like when they get to the bridge, I'm like, yeah, here's the scene. And it was awesome. And the first truck gets over it because I thought the other truck went the other way. I'm like, well, they did it. Okay, I thought, someone would die on this. And then it's like, oh, that wasn't so bad. And then the other truck has to come across it, and it's so much worse. And I'm like, oh my God, dude. Oh,
Yeah.
and the guys like this, the Palestinian or whatever. He's
Yeah,
like,
Kasim, right?
yeah, he is
Kasim
about to
G.
like get run over by this truck because it's
He's like under the axle.
yeah, and you get that quick POV shot of like the bridge broken in a way that where he can't put his hands down or anything. It's like brutal.
I can't even imagine. And it's funny because like all swinging rope bridges obviously remind me of Temple of Doom, and that's so light and fun compared to this, and this
Yeah.
is so goddamn terrifying.
Which is funny that you say it because it's like that really is a fun, mostly light movie if you don't take occult shit that
Well, yeah,
serious.
that's I think it's a fun light movie, and then some weird shit happens in the middle of it.
Yeah, but
Unlike this movie, which is just bleak beginning to end from the first frame.
it's bleak, but there was a tinge of personal comedy of like, oh yeah, we got through that scene. Okay, cool. Now here's the next truck. It's like, ah, damn it. This can't get
It's
any worse, right?
no, it's crazy. It's Sisyphean
Like,
almost.
I figured that they were gonna die in that scene, and I was surprised that they didn't. And
No, and they had those. If you're wondering how they built those bridges, like it was built with hydraulics and stuff in it, which it's still amazing that they were able to do all that practically.
yeah,
I keep repeating that, but it's so impressive to me.
it really is.
I mean,
But then they get another fucking kind of like a joke from God. Here's this giant, massive tree that you couldn't move even if your life depended on it. And it even gets to that one guy who just starts laughing. He can't even
yeah,
help
was it? It's
himself.
who's laughing? Is it Nilo, the
Yeah,
hitman?
yeah, that guy.
Which I want to address this real quick. So Nilo is not originally one of the four drivers. It's
Yeah,
some other guy. And then I think he kills that guy because it's implied that he was a former Nazi. You see a passport with like a Wehrmacht or whatever we
yeah,
call it thing on his ID. Why he's just carrying around a Nazi ID, I don't know. It's a movie. But the he does that. And I was thinking, like, wait, why is Nilo driving these trucks at all? Like, why is he wanting to do this? Does he need the money? So, and I was googling to some, like message boards of people talking about it, and they were saying that Nilo was trying to do a hit on Scanlon,
mm,
but he wanted to make it home first, or he just got caught up in it before doing that. Because spoilers again, Scanlon gets killed at the end. So mainly because Nilo couldn't do it, they had to send his old buddy who was trying to cover for him. And at the end, I we'll get to that. I don't know if he's just straight up betraying him or he was just told like, look, you have to go do this. You know,
yeah, yeah,
I think it could be either. It doesn't really matter. That's coming for you either way.
yeah. But it's like I said, this particular scene where they're kind of stuck and it's hot and Roy Scheider's character is freaking out, chopping down stuff. It
Great
really
character development. He's just like, I'll cut through this whole jungle. Goddamn.
yeah. He's that delusional. He's like, yeah, fuck it. But this part reminds me of like the madness kind of ramping up in Aguirre, Wrath of God. But that's just like constant in that movie to the way where by the time you finish Aguirre, you're gonna be driven insane. It's that level. This is just like you can feel it escalating, and it's done so effectively. And kudos to Cassim for coming up with an idea on how to blow it
He's a
up.
bomb expert because he's blowing up Jews all the time.
Jesus.
It's like this is an RPG. His like Jew blowing up skill would be like 90. And he's like, oh, I can use this on this tree.
He's like, yeah, I
Which
think
I'm
I
not saying is
could.
a good thing, but
Yeah, yeah. He's like that pyromaniac from Super 8 who's like obsessed with fire. He's like,
oh
yeah,
yeah, he's
I'll
like
figure this out.
no, or the guy from Atlantis who always wants to like blow things up.
Oh yeah.
You're explosive expert. That's what he is.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
the guy in the party who's like, oh, I put a lot of points into demolition.
I was really expecting that.
No,
I was
I knew like they're gonna have to use the dynamite at this
well, no,
point.
I expected the rock to like somehow fall earlier while he was like
Yeah,
working
no,
on it or
it's kind
something.
of you're well, that's the tenseness of the scene because like
Yeah.
you see Cassim booking it, and the truck backs like 900 yards back. I'm like, how big is this effing explosion gonna
They were
be?
being extra careful because
No,
I
they
was
were
like,
showing. They were like, we would need this money. Also, if like one piece of shrapnel hits this wrong, like we're blowing up too. No, they show like six different shots. It feels of the truck backing up. I'm like, okay, they're backing up. I get it.
you also get that brief moment when a little bit earlier where Roy Scheider's character thinks the other truck went the other way and probably got destroyed or something because he thinks that it's like swamps, they'll never make it or something. And he gets kind of excited that he might have double shares now. And it's kind of brutal before they
Yeah.
show up in the forest.
Yeah, it's like when I'm mad that they booked like 5 comics for a show instead of 3, because then I got to split ticket sales with people. I'm like, oh, I wish these guys had died on the way here.
Jesus.
But
But
maybe.
that I did root for at least the Frenchman. The other guys, not so much.
Yeah,
Yeah, well, you know,
he doesn't spend a lot of time making these characters likable, but it's kind of like at the beginning of There Will Be Blood when you need to rewatch that. When Daniel Plainview like breaks his legs for getting silver and is crawling across the desert for days. And I heard
yeah,
Tarantino talk about it. He's like, that could be a movie in itself, just that scene. Like that could be the whole movie of him going through the desert. But like it's even though he's objectively a despicable person, he's like these guys are so goddamn determined. You have to respect them. And you're like, and also like their life is so shitty. You're like, you don't want anyone to live that way.
yeah. And he gives a letter to the guy, says, you know, like give this to France if you can, and the guy's like, I'll take care of it. To me, I thought that was a setup to say, well, he's gonna make it through because he's gonna get that letter back. They're gonna be like, oh, you can give it to her yourself. No, it's actually pretty straightforward.
They tricked you on
but,
that one.
but it was like as soon as he starts opening up about himself, boom, immediately. I thought that was kind of poignant. That like I don't know, great because it was like as soon as the tire pops and it blows up, it happens so fast and it's cut so quickly it hit me immediately like this is the film. This is the theme of the film in like 5 seconds. And
Yeah.
I thought it was pretty powerful filmmaking.
No, if you put different music to it, that could be a comedy. Like
Yeah.
that, like a blown tire and then it explodes. It's that could be something from like 21 Jump Street, or something.
Yeah. Like some stupid. Yeah. Well, I mean, straight out of It's a Mad World or something.
Yeah,
It's like crazy.
exactly.
But it's after this, like, that signified to me what the film was all about. And I was like, yeah, this rocks. But then after that, when they're getting held up by the people that are trying to take the truck, then we got what's his name, who shoots all of them, ends up getting shot with them. Kind of knew that was coming, but it was like now there's only one, and it's Roy Scheider, and this is where the film like escalates to me to the point of like being a classic. Because I
Yeah.
was enjoying the movie, but it's like he's driving through this like wasteland that could be like the forbidden zone from goddamn Planet of the Apes for all I know.
It looks like somebody nuked it. I mean,
Yeah,
he's in
and
hell.
so
He's passing through hell.
yeah, that's what it felt like, and it was brilliant location scouting. I'm like, this is so perfect. Like
Yeah, I think
all
it's
he could
somewhere in New
see around
Mexico or
him
something.
is death and destruction. And it really elevated the film and the psychological elements bubbled up so fast because now he's having like hallucinations and just thinking about the death that he witnessed and why he's here and all the horrific stuff he's seen. And like it almost, yeah, this is where it feels like he's being played with God as punishment, especially when the guy next to him's dying and laughing and stuff. And it's just brilliantly cut in a way that felt ahead of its time, almost like a nightmare sequence from a surrealistic film. And I was like, okay, yeah, this is what kind of stuff I was waiting for. This is awesome.
Yeah, and
Just,
he earns it, because it isn't. It's and it works so well because it's the juxtaposition. Because so much of this movie is tactile. When it
yeah,
finally becomes intensely psychological,
yeah.
it's such a jarring contrast that it puts you in the head of that character because it's so unsettling.
And it's easy to see how quickly he could like
get lost and
get
lose it.
lost, go crazy from all the shit that they've been going through.
Because he's probably, I'm sure they were sleeping in shifts, but he's got no sleep. He's probably dehydrated.
Who knows? I mean, we don't even know
We don't see
how
him eat.
long he's been living in this country, too.
Yeah.
So, but it's like the car, the when the truck won't start, I'm like, yeah, that's what you get. Kind of just like fuck it, we're God's doubling down on your ass kind of a thing. But it's like to see the shot of him carrying it on foot and like there's this weird, almost ethereal aura to the sequence of the shot of him carrying it into the camp, into the oil rig camp. Who knows how much longer it would have taken him to walk there and his kind of disarray. Who knows? Like
It could have been
there's
hours.
this
Yeah.
weird beauty to this ugly sort of situation.
But also, it's again, it's like he's arriving in hell because it's still burning. It's
I
the
know,
only,
yeah,
the only light source in the scene. It looks fantastic. It looks
it really
amazing.
does. It was like captivating to me,
Hmm.
that whole final sequence. And because I figured he would lose it, something would happen, he would like kill himself out there or like or maybe he would fucking die of starvation or something, but he makes it. I guess it wasn't that far. They were so close, but I kind of thought, okay, he somehow managed to pull this off. And I figured William Friedkin's not going to let this guy have a happy ending. Sure enough, almost
Yeah,
in a
his old
comedic way.
sort of. And the look on his friend who sent him here, her colleague, I should say, his conspirator. Um, you know, I can't really. I'm trying to remember exactly what his face was. I'm still trying to parse it. I think it's one of these like I have to do this because I was told to. I don't want to do this, but like they figured out where he went, and I was just like, okay. Again, because that fan theory, maybe because Nilo fell. And when I first watched it, it was one of those things where I audibly will groan. I'll be like, ugh, and my gut will sink because it did. It felt sadistic. That's the word that popped in my head. It felt sadistic to the audience. Like Friedkin was so against it having a happy ending. He wanted you to get your hopes up and then crash it because he wanted you to experience the same disappointment and nihilism that the characters have spent. And so when I watched this last night, I just my mom. I
Hold on, wait, testing.
testing.
Yeah, it's good.
Okay, sorry, I'm cut around that.
Yeah.
When when I watched this last night, I felt kind of I felt it was like cruel and unusual punishment. But the more I talk about it, and the more I think the themes of this movie, I think this is the only way this movie could have ended. Like this is what has to
I
happen.
was kind of expecting it, honestly.
Yeah, I guess I was. It was one of those I was hoping it wouldn't,
I
but
wasn't. I was like, yeah, these guys have entered a land of death and destruction. This is all throughout the whole, undercutting the whole film with these themes. I was like, there's no way he's going to get out of it. Something's going to happen. And sure enough, it comes all the way back around full circle. I was like, yeah, this makes sense to me. And there's a level of cosmic irony here that I appreciate, almost find kind of funny in a fucked up way. So I was totally in on the ending a lot, actually. I was like, yeah,
yeah,
this
no. Now that
rules.
I'm talking about it, yeah, that's the only way it could end. Like I
Man,
said.
you will not like Joker 2 though, I'll tell you that much. That's the wrong way to do it. Just
Ooh,
say.
I can't wait. I've been putting it off because it's supposed to be terrible. And I have
And
other
it
stuff
is.
to
Don't
watch.
let Tarantino fucking trick you.
No, I've been watching other stuff.
But yeah, this movie was badass.
That's kind of what you have to sum it up with. Like, if you could sum it up in one word, it's like it's
I mean,
bad.
there's only so much I feel like you can say. But it was just like a cool movie, you know?
Yeah, it's cool.
It's
Like,
not
cool
like
is the word.
I wouldn't say it's a complete masterpiece, but it was a good time. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a very strong film. But I would say To Live and Die in LA and The Exorcist are probably the superior films.
Yeah.
But I had a great time. And unfortunately I related to William Friedkin's kind of point of view a little bit too much. But that's my own personal issues. But
Yeah.
you know,
We are nihilists. We believe in
no,
Nazi.
I'm not definitely not a nihilist. I'm just saying just like that view being haunted by inevitability of
Yeah.
things. The randomness and also inevitability of death is
I
brutal.
am inevitable.
But it's so human and it's so raw, just like this movie. So
I embrace it. I'm like, things
you
get
would.
bad enough. I can kill myself. I don't know.
Yeah. Final
If I
thoughts on.
if I'm having to sell my sperm to SpaceX so I can like get my gruel for the week, if it gets to that point, I was like, I can just kill myself. It's fine.
That's true.
But then they extract my consciousness from my brain and put it in a robot, and I have to
That
toil away
sucks.
forever as a slave.
That's brutal.
Yeah.
I kind of was like, kind of thinking of like, what if they made like a less substance-y like sequel to this movie, like right after it came out, like a year later, like where he's like fighting the mob and shit. Like he survived that encounter at the end. It's like a hacky sequel, but it's like double the violence.
Yeah. And it just turns into like a gunslinger movie. Or what if they made another movie called Sorcerers and there's like 50 trucks all going down the mountain at the same time? Sigourney Weaver's driving the truck the whole time.
I was thinking like, I know people at home don't get mad at me for being if you find this dumb or lame, but like I was thinking halfway through this movie like, what if they made a video game kind of based on this concept? It'd be kind of cool.
No, I've played missions in video games like that. They get real tedious and annoying real fast.
I'm not saying the whole thing is driving the truck. You also have to fight off bandits and like figure shit out and like maybe sneak into like camps and take people down. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, this is I mean, that's Far Cry 3 is what yeah, that's what you're
Yeah,
describing.
well, you know,
That's Far Cry.
a more linear Far Cry 3. Nah, I'm just kidding. I don't know. It was just a thought, but it did feel like a little gamey.
I could see that because in the way that so many of the obstacles are external obstacles, not even interpersonal, that they have to, it's like physical obstacles they have to
Yeah.
overcome. I see what you're saying with that.
Yeah, I was surprised that there wasn't like a
Nobody's
real.
chasing them.
Yeah, I'm saying
Or
yeah, that and like there's no moment where they're all like about to kill each other, which I
yeah,
was kind of expecting, but he does pull out that gun and shoot at him for fun, which is a prick move, but it's to
yeah,
show, oh, this guy still has a gun on him.
yeah.
Okay.
It's a Chekhov's gun. Literally, it's textbook usage.
It's a sorcerer's gun. Um,
Harry,
anyway.
Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Gun. That's what people say. They renamed it Sorcerer's Stone from Philosopher's Stone for the American version, but they tried to go with that first.
You can't use guns at Hogwarts because magic somehow deactivates
Shut the
their
fuck
capabilities.
up.
Anyway, final thoughts on Sorcerer.
It's great, and you're a nerd.
Oh, that's why we're here, folks. Anyway, thanks for listening. If you want to support us, you can support Scott by listening to his brand new interview on what?
It was Patrick and the People, kind of a local legend, a radio guy, known as Angry Patrick, had me on, and we had a good time talking about random current events, nothing important, just stupid news stories, stuff like that, and riffing. And you can check that out. Follow me at Scott K Comedy on Instagram. I post that. I got a couple shows this weekend coming up. It'll be fun.
Yeah, this guy is like, I was listening to him on the radio going to school when I was in middle school.
It's crazy.
So
It's crazy. I was like,
pretty cool.
I've listened to this guy for so many years.
So I'm happy about that. If
And
you
I'm
want to
pretty sure
support
he'll have
us,
the Tiger King call in for an interview soon, which is like I don't know where how they make their guest decisions that I'm on the same show as that. I'm like, all right, I'll do it.
Scott and the Tiger King, two bros. Anyway, I have a book for sale. If you want to support us in that way, you can find that in the description below. It's also going to be featured on the Mega 64 Black Friday cast. They'll be talking about it. If you also are a internet soldier like me, check that out when that hits. That's pretty cool. I'm excited about that. We have a tie-in film. We have to this show called The Patrician's Guide to Kino, as well as other films on our other channel, The Mooring Line. You can watch Christmas in Vegas, my documentary, while it's still on there, because it's Christmas time. It's a Christmas movie, and stupid stuff happens. So there's all kinds of ways to support us. If you want to help this channel grow, you can share an episode. Go find an episode you really like that we talked about of a movie that your friend also likes that movie. Share it with them. Be like, I like this discussion. Stuff like that helps. But anyway, next week, I forgot. I know we're doing a thanks cast. Casher will be back on. If you're wondering about Casher, he'll be back on for a Thanksgiving
And I'll
cast.
give you a hint. Think of Thanksgiving movies. It's that one.
It's the only one.
It's the only one. I won't even
Anyway,
say it, but like it's that one.
thanks for listening, everybody. We'll see you next week.